This video is on the mock rib stitch, and it can be used instead of a standard rib. A normal rib, as you see, has a lot of stretch in it. Like when I did this outfit here, I had to do a knit 2 purl 2 after I picked up the right amount of stitches, and in order for it to lay flat you had to stretch it out, which to me kind of distorts the overall appearance. If you do the mock rib stitch, it lays nice and flat. It doesn't have to be stretched, and you can actually see a little bit of the ribbing, but you also see this purl stitch in here, which gives it a little bit of character. To do this stitch, you can make it on anything. Like this would be the bottom band of an outfit, or it could be the bottom of a sleeve if you make it first. This side would be the back side, which you see the ribs, and you can either use it this direction or you can turn it over and use the other side, which is a very nubby bumpy, which makes another texture. So when you start on the back. So row 1 when you're doing this rib stitch is the back, and you would knit and purl like you normally would if you were doing a 1x1 rib, which would be knit, purl, knit, purl. And to make sure you're on the right stitch, you can always kind of tip your work back and see. Now my next one should be a purl, which looks like a rib on the back side. Every now and then I have to take a quick check and peek, because I'll get daydreaming and I will lose my place, and next thing you know I'm knitting a purl and purling a knit. But you do this all the way across one row. And then when you turn your work, which would be the back side, that's the side you would knit all the way across. That's what keeps the piece from puckering in like the knit 1 purl 1 does, which is the elastic stitch in knitting. So I'm just about done here. Just like to take it all the way to the end. Looks like I got a couple more stitches left, and we'll be there. So when you turn it to this side, it lays nice and flat. Now this was the back side, which would be row 2, and row 2 is just strictly knit. I kind of like this stitch for 2 reasons. One, you don't have to stretch and distort it in order to when you block a piece, and also it gives you a break between doing the knit 1 purl 1, because that gets kind of tiring and old hat after a while, especially if the piece is large. So by taking a break and knitting 1 row between your knits and purls, it's kind of nice. So I use this a lot on the bottoms of my sweaters that don't need to be puckered in, or on my sleeve cuffs. But mostly I like to use it on my button and neckbands, because the reason it doesn't pull, it just gives it a nice finished look without the stretch. Because no matter how many times you block something, it doesn't want to come out the way you want it. So as you see, you get a really nice rib stitch. That you can stretch it if you want, but it doesn't really need to be stretched because it lays nice on its own. And here's an example of the 2 different ways. This is your standard rib, knit 1 purl 1 rib. I'm pretending this is a button band, that's why the holes are here. But you have to pull it out like this and stretch it out to block it in order for the button band to lay the right size. And as you see, it really distorts the stitches. When you do the mock rib, you may have to pull it out a little bit, but you don't have to pull it nearly as much, and your nice rib shows. Now we're going to show how to do a really neat way of picking it up on a piece of fabric. This works pretty good in most cases. Your pattern generally will say pick up X amount of stitches along the side. Well, sometimes it's hard to judge how many stitches you pick up before you skip one. So this is kind of an easy rule of thumb that works pretty good. Sometimes it hits it exactly on target, sometimes it's off by 1 or 2, and then you just do an increase. So when you do it, you would pick up the first 2 rows, skip 1, pick up the next 2, 1, 2, skip 1, pick up 2, 1, 2, skip 1, 1, 2, skip 1. So this is great for if you have to pick up a sleeve on a garment, or you need to pick up and do a button band or a neck band. It's just a really nice way to do it and not have to worry about counting and coming up short, having to take the stitches out and crunch them closer together. It just makes it a little bit less cumbersome. Especially if you're just starting out, this is a nice way to get started making your bands. So you remember, you pick up 2, skip 1, pick up 2, skip 1. And as you can see, it does lay very nicely and even. Now if this was a mock stitch, you would start on this side with a knit 1, purl 1. So knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, all the way across, knit 1, purl 1. Now if this was just a regular stockinette band or a garter band, you would just knit all the way across or purl all the way across, depending on what your pattern calls for. I'll just go ahead and finish purling this one. And say you've gone and you found out you needed to add one more stitch. It's very easy. You would just purl in the front stitch and then purl in the back side of the stitch, and that will give you an increase if you need 1 or 2. And it blends in so nicely you can hardly tell that you've even done these increases. So you knit in the front loop, you purl in the front loop, then you purl in the back loop. And that gives you your increase. And after you finish this side, then of course you would continue in pattern. Whether it's knitting all the way across, purling all the way across, knit 1, purl 1, whatever your pattern requires. I'll go ahead and go to the end and then pull the needle out, and you can see how nice and flat it lays. There's one of my increases right there. You can't really see it once the piece is finished. You can just see it at this point because you're kind of pulling at the stitches, getting it ready for the completion of your garment. Okay, now I'm into the knit 1, purl 1 where the mock rib stitch is, which is right here. Okay, now I'll go ahead and pull it off. As you can see, it stays nice and flat. You don't have to pull to distort it. And I've added that 1 increase here, and I've added 1 increase here, but you can't see it. You have a great day.